Hi, I thought it might be worth maybe making a little bit of a video as an update as to what's going on in the church right now, and maybe to say what the future might be holding. I know there's a lot of confusion out there right now. We haven't been able to meet since March 15th was when we were told we weren't allowed to have public worship services anymore. That we had to move to other ways of worshiping together. And so we've been having Zoom meetings, and we've been putting YouTube videos up and trying to connect that way. We've been doing a Bible study, and we have a disciple night study as well. And so I know lots of other people are doing other things, ACWs, sending out emails and connecting in those ways. And I thank you for all of you that are connecting to other people. Our parish council is calling out and making sure everyone's doing all right. And so is our pastoral care team. They're making calls and making sure people are doing okay as well. So I'm super, super thankful and proud of all those people who are helping to keep us connected. I think it's a very, very good thing. So thank you. We're learning lots of things being isolated in this time. One of the things we learned is actually how we've been able to connect with some people who, even before COVID-19, were having to isolate because of illness, or maybe just weren't feeling able to get out of bed. And that showed us that these are tools that we should be using, the ability to connect by video and some of these other means. I think this is a good thing for us to be doing, to be connecting with those who are even in ordinary times are not able to be with us. And so we definitely want to be working on continuing that. There's good things that have come out of this, and there's lots of difficult things that are coming out of this. And mental illness is something that is looming the longer this goes on. And I think it's a shock at the beginning, but as it continues to drag on and on, I think it's wearing on a lot of people. And so this is getting hard for a lot of us. Some of us are kind of settling into a pattern, and for some of us, this is getting really hard. And when we hear it announced that, churches are part of phase 1 reopening, that can sort of get our hopes up. And then we discover what kinds of limitations we have on us to gather as a part of phase 1. It becomes a little less realistic. It can be a little bit of a letdown. So just to clarify some of this, that the headlines might say churches are a part of phase 1 reopening, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can just open the doors and go back to normal. So there are 22 conditions that are a part of reopening that are coming from the province. I should say before I say anything about this is all theoretical. So the Archbishop has put together a task force to try to understand and develop a plan for reopening. That group needs to continue to do its work, and I think they're doing a good and thorough job. But because it's good and thorough, it's going to take some time to realize. We have some good medical people that are on that task force as well, who are going to be helping us to make sure we're opening in a safe way. And that means that some dioceses are going to be opening at different times and in areas where they don't have as much experience or as much infection. That's probably going to be not as big a worry for them as it is for us. Being so close, being a part of the Diocese of Calgary where there has been more infection. So, and there's probably going to be differences between whether you're rural or whether you're urban and these kinds of things. So it is a tricky time, and I don't envy the work that group is going to have to try to do to make all this work. We're talking theoretically right now because we don't have the permission to open in any real kind of way. We have to wait for the work of that task force, and then we have to wait for the word from the bishop that gives us permission. So we'll continue doing what we're doing for the time being. There are 22 conditions that we've received from the province if we decide we want to open, even if we were given permission. And for every one of these conditions, we have to ask things like, who is this going to affect? What changes do we need to make to our gatherings to meet the requirement? Who will implement the changes and how? How do we inform the parish of the requirement and subsequent changes? How do we enforce the requirement? So if someone isn't following it, how do we make sure people are following it? And what do we do if the requirements aren't followed, so someone isn't following the correct procedures? What do we do? So, and a few examples of these are, so first, I'll just give a few. I'm not going to go through all 22, but I'll give you an example of a few of these to show you how complicated this actually is to try to reopen. So staff, visitors, and parishioners must use the provincial self-assessment tool before attending. So before you come to church, or we have to have someone standing outside with a paper copy to make sure you've gone through the self-assessment tool to make sure that you haven't been exposed and aren't ill before you can even step into the building. So you think about the complication that makes. We have to sort of have someone sitting out there with a table, probably with a mask on, vetting everyone to make sure that they've used this tool to make sure they're safe. Staff, visitors, and parishioners must at all times practice social distancing. So we have to make sure that everyone is sitting the proper distance away. And that probably means every second pew can be used. We'll have to put masking tape or something on the pews to make sure that people are at proper distance. Families can sit together, but other individuals are not able to sit together. They have to be the right distance apart. Infants and children must remain with their parents at all times. No children's church or nursery is permitted. Depending on your children, keeping your children in your lap for a whole church service is not an easy task. So that almost eliminates parents wanting to bring their children to church, because it would be an incredible feat to try to just keep them in your lap the whole time. Control and stagger entry into facilities. So that means we would have to have someone outside the doors making sure that people aren't coming in a way that they're too close to each other, and they're not bumping into each other on the stairs and that kind of thing. Congregants should be reminded to clean their hands on entry and exit. So we'd have to have someone there or a table set up with hand sanitizer to make sure that everyone's doing that. We probably need to make sure that we're sanitizing our bathrooms pretty regularly, if not after every use. Develop and implement procedures for increasing the frequency of cleaning and disinfecting all high traffic areas, common areas, public washrooms. So we have to make sure that we're regularly washing down hand railings, washing down pews, washing down the bathrooms. It's going to be a big job for those who are going to be volunteering for that. Frequently cleaning and disinfecting high-touch shared surfaces such as doorknobs, light switches, toilet handles, faucets and taps, elevator buttons, railings. So it's a lot of work. Seating should be arranged or marked in case of pews to ensure social distancing. We talked about that. Services must not include shared food or beverages. Services must not include any contact between congregants, such as handshaking or the sharing of communal items like a communion chalice. Or an offering plate. So even if we gather, we're not really at this point permitted to share communion. It doesn't seem like there's a possibility of doing that. Congregational singing is a high-risk activity. I'm reading from their requirement. Congregational singing is a high-risk activity and is not allowed. Consider soloist music or piano guitar offertories as an alternative. While there is no evidence of exactly what a safe distance would be to prevent transmission from someone singing, if one or two people are singing as a part of a live streamed or recorded service, factors that would reduce risk would be having the singers face away from each other or having barriers, plexiglass, that separate those singing from each other and from others, and ensuring that there is no individual with chronic medical conditions or those over 65 present. I even heard someone recommend that no one over 60 or 65 should be present. So that doesn't seem to be a part of these requirements right now, but So even if we gather, we can't have communion, and we are not allowed to sing. We would have to have someone leading us in that singing, but everyone else would have to be quiet. And to enable management of cases through contact tracing and follow-up, keeping a list of congregants who are present for the services. So we're being encouraged to keep a list of everyone who's present, so that if someone is told, or we're told that they have COVID-19, then we can call through that list and inform everyone who is at that service with that person that they've been exposed to it, and then that they are supposed to quarantine for 14 days. On top of this, we're only allowed to have 1/3 of our capacity, or 50 people, whichever is less. And so for us, that would equal out, I think, to 40 people. I'd have to look at what our capacity is again. But I think that equals out to 40 people. But that also includes all the people that are leading the service, and those that would have to be volunteering to sanitize, and those who would be volunteering to man the doors and manage traffic. So that, I'm imagining that's probably 5 people. So really we're looking at allowing 35 people to come in. And then we have to consider, well, what do we do for those who aren't able to come? Either we have to have multiple services in a day so that everyone is able to come, or we have to continue doing what we're doing, which is putting services on Zoom and on YouTube, as well as doing these other steps to try to have worship together. So it is an incredible effort to try to open under these conditions, and I think wisely the bishop hasn't given permission for us to do that yet, until either things open up a little bit more. And it just feels like we'd be excluding so many people from worshiping together that it wouldn't feel right to be together with having so many people excluded. And even for us to be together and not be able to do so many of those things that make us a community, being able to touch each other, being able to have communion together, being able to sing together, to allow children to run around. Like there's so many, it feels so strange and artificial. I'm not sure there's a point at this point anyway. So I know for some it feels like it's maybe way overkill, but we have to follow these procedures, and they're thinking of worst case scenarios. There was this one church in Calgary, and they had it was a birthday party, I think, at their church, and it was Dr. Dana Hinshaw talked about this one church in Calgary and what had happened. They followed all the rules, they followed all the procedures, they were using good hygiene, and yet, even though there were only 41 people present, someone was there who didn't know they were contagious, and 24 people got COVID-19, and 2 of them died from this. So that's what I think the province is thinking about. They're thinking about these kinds of intense potential infections. And that's what they're trying to prevent us from having happen or spreading. So I know it's really frustrating and it's really tricky to try to figure out how we do all this. And there's no perfect answer. We're living in a world of gray and trying to figure out what can work for us. Sometimes we're not thinking about what's perfect, we're thinking about what's livable. So I thank you very much for your patience, and I thank you for the ways in which you're praying for us and reaching out to one another. Please continue to do that. And I know that we're reaching a point now where we're starting to get a little weary, but the sun is shining and spring is here. Summer's right around the corner. Please be patient. Please take care of yourselves, and we'll get through it. It'll take us some time, but we'll get through it. So I'm praying for you all, and thank you for all that you're doing. God bless you.